So, after burying my hatchet with GX last time, I feel like calming down for a little bit. Not that I need to take a break from Symphogear or anything, but that flurry of shit really exhausted me. Please be gentle with this one, Kaneko. Once more, first off, I want to establish how I experienced the show, because AXZ actually kind of goes against my self-imposed rules for this series. I'm supposed to rewatch shows I've seen years ago and reevaluate my opinions on them. But I've watched this season of Symphogear just after its run ended 2 summers ago. There weren't any specific circumstances or something that make this anime really special to me either. While I was still excited as all hell for a new season of Symphogear, GX had dampened my love and expectations I could put into this season to the point where I was pretty much unable to get my hopes up. As a result, I was very pleasantly surprised with AXZ for reasons I'll get into later, but it was also the least memorable of all seasons I'd seen so far, as it made very little impact to me personally and how I perceived the show. On top of that, I was now very solidly cemented into anime culture. I had watched roughly 50 shows and a handful of movies to some degree and was very active in online communities. Symphogear AXZ was the first season of Symphogear that I experienced as the man I am today. Okay, look. After the last 3 episodes, you're expecting some forcibly meme-filled retrospective of the first episode. But I'm gonna get down and dirty with this one. GX gave us some of the most over-the-top definitive action for a first episode of Symphogear. AXZ, meanwhile, opts for showing us how the public existence and usage of Symphogears and other heretical technology in warfare looks like. And it's just straight up fucking insane. Punching tank shells out of your way, taking the turrets of those shells' origin and using them as a fucking sledgehammer, noise mines, and airships like the one FIS used in G are commonplace now. And it's fucking terrifying and awesome at the same time. In all seriousness, while I will always point you to the opener of GX for a bite-sized, condensed rundown of what Symphogear is to introduce people to the show, this opening scene shows off incredibly well how much has changed in the world since the last season, while still catering to the balls-to-the-ceiling action and having the absolutely amazing soundtrack that fans of the show have come to know and love. As AXZ passes, we see it desperately try to fix what GX broke for many people. But story things first. After punching the shit out of a bunch of baddies in a rainforest, we are introduced to this season's villains, when Hibiki decides to finish this encounter by literally punching their massive, magically self-healing snake monster through multiple dimensions so hard that it can't use its magic self-healing. No, really. Following this, the cast is almost spirit-bombed to death, and after a couple more encounters with the villains, it becomes apparent that the Lapis Philosophorum the villains are using is not only strong enough to beat Symphogears, but actually uses their power against them. It seems that Hibiki's rock cancer from G can be used as this season's seasonal upgrade, allowing the users to negate the enemy's Faust Robe's power of practically siphoning phonic gain of the Symphogear users. Parallel to this, we discover Unison, which, in story terms, allows 2 Symphogear users that are in sync enough to utilize each other's phonic gain, and practically ends up being an excuse to give us some very solid duets with very unconventional pairings, as well as some of the straight-up craziest attacks of the entire show. Seriously, Change the Future is just... This brings me to the soundtrack, which, while still absolutely amazing, sadly enough is very forgettable, at least to me. This season still has some absolutely amazing songs, and it's overall a very, very good soundtrack, even to the point of the Ignite versions being actually great to listen to this time around. But none, or only 2 or 3 of them really stick with you after watching. The animation and art style, on the other hand, saw a massive overhaul. While it would still be accurate, saying that they simply got a straight upgrade from last season is an understatement. The animation, I can leave at saying that it got a simple upgrade. But the art style, while still recognizable as very, very Symphogear-esque, has changed to be more crisp, with higher contrast, slightly thicker line work, and more striking colors. Don't get me wrong, this is still very much Symphogear's art style, but in comparison to previous seasons, it's not just better, it's a more refined version, with a lot of thought poured into what made the show look good in the first place, which was then focused on to make that edge more better than it would have been with a simple upgrade. Now, the way AXZ does story is very interesting. AXZ simply plays off of earlier made points in Symphogear's history and uses them to tell its own story while also fleshing out said background story of this universe. As a result, we get a story that feels organic and well interwoven with previous seasons. Though you could technically also blame this on, The villains literally being Illuminati that are pulling the strings behind pretty much everything that has happened on the story until this point. Yes, you heard that right. The villains this time around are quite literally the Bavarian Illuminati and a couple of allied, once more near mortal, alchemists. While not the absolutely amazing, if somewhat cookie-cutter personalities of the auto scorers in GX, these are some of the strongest villain figures Symphogear has to offer, both in story relevance as well as their personalities. With everything said and done, aside from the low memorability of everything, I can see few faults in AXZ for what it is. Clean up after GX. It tries and succeeds with flying colors to build a compelling story while forcibly using the alchemy left behind from the previous season. Of course, it's not all perfect. Adam Weishaupt, the mastermind of the Bavarian Illuminati, is really only there to be Mr. Evil, be naked, look good, and get punched really hard. Some of the plot is pretty contrived, and even this season's Gangnir Dato is quite forced. However, while I can't quite say why, I feel like I can look over those downsides this time around, because I enjoyed watching the show through these things, with these things, or even because of these things, not in spite of them. With AXZ, you can feel that after GX's success, Symphogear is trying to go back, rewind, and become what it once was, and that it's succeeding incredibly well. Of course, the motive to make money is still there, but that's going to be the case with any show. But in AXZ, you can feel that passion again. The piece that GX, at least to me, seemed to be sorely missing, and really, if I'm right with my guesses about the franchise's history, it's really a miracle that we're still here. It's incredibly rare that even adaptations of massive franchises that don't gain some serious traction get more than 2 seasons, and often the wait between those can reach many, many years. Symphogear was a failed project that, against all odds, pumped out 4 seasons in 5 years, and the 5th season is already on its way coming out next season. But, all in all, after rewatching this season, I have to say that my opinion of Symphogear AXZ is considerably heightened, and that overall, I give the Senki Zesshou Symphogear franchise 5 out of 5 dick jokes. Because even with soon-to-be 5 seasons under its belt, we all know that the length of something is not the most accurate indicator of its quality. Quick important announcement at the end here. As the keen-eyed of you may have noticed, there are now a handful of new recommended channels on my channel. These are all there now, but I plan to cultivate them with content at some point, even though it might be a while away. The two I'd like you to pay close attention to are Radio Chatter and Bisa's Parlor, former being for a podcast that should start around this turn of the season, and latter being for supplementary content for this your main channel, such as extras, outtakes, rants, and the like. Bisa After Dark, if you will. Anyways, please check those two out, and I will see you next time. Bisa out.